here tonight, I was just having a chance to talk to Father Peter, who I never see, so that's even better. One of the great things that, a number of you mentioned it already, one of the great things about these kinds of events is that we do naturally sort of tend to silo ourselves into our regular groups, and this is one of the wonderful ways that across the parish, we really do something across the parish. And so I'm really glad that you're all here. So the assignment is mercy and strengths and how those go together. Last year, Christina did a great job with mercy and prayer. And I've been worrying about this ever since I got the assignment. And then I finally decided, well, I'm not exactly going to do it that way. So here's what I'm going to do. 2 parts. First of all, just talk about mercy and the year of mercy and all of that stuff. Pope Francis obviously has commissioned us, urged us to do this reflection, and there's been a lot of discussion about mercy since the Pope, that's now almost 3 years, or almost 3 years. And so there's been a lot of discussion. Sometimes some of that discussion hasn't been very merciful, but I'll talk a little bit about that. The second is, of course, to try and work together, instead of me telling you how to apply mercy to strengths, work together on how to do that. One of the things I noticed is that you'll notice that there is no theme or domain named mercy, right? So, which is good, because that means that there's not one group of people who have the domain or theme of mercy, and we can say, well, they can do the mercy, and the rest of us can take the year off. And we do tend to do that sometimes with these strength themes. They say, oh yeah, we just need a woo, and that'll take care of everything. Well, that's not how it works. Okay, you'll take care of everything. But clearly we're not tempted to do that with the strengths in terms of mercy. It means that we all are encouraged to find and practice and see with eyes of mercy all people, all cases, all situations. So that's part A and B. But before part A and B, there's a preface. As I was thinking about this, and I don't know, it's just a setting in context. It's for those who are strong in context, you're feeling very good. But, you know, the preface remarks are sort of in the line of, this should go without saying, but I would like to say it. First of all, to remember, again, the context here. One is that whenever we talk about strengths, remember the Gallup people put this out, and they are not a religious organization necessarily. I'm not saying they're not religious people, but that's not their goal, primarily. But they have helped us translate that for the religious setting. But our context is a religious setting. Our context is that it all begins and ends with God. We're in the church, faith, God context, reflecting on Christmas Day, reflecting on the reading for Christmas Day and the Incarnation is, you know, it is about that God is in, that the Word and God is in God. In the beginning was the Word, which was in God. And so, and that Word is spoken to us. So the incarnational reality that we are touched by God and commissioned by God, and that's one of the ways we come here to understand how we understand ourselves, understand our strengths, and what to do with them. And so we come here in God. But we also come here in our current culture. We come here as moderns or postmoderns. And there's a guy that I heard on actually on NPR, and then I found his book. His name is Adam Gopnik. Not so sure about the book, but I love the quote. He said, modern people are drawn to faith while practicing doubt. Our ancestors confessed their doubts while practicing faith. Say that another way. In the past, and not so distant past, people practiced faith. We were people of faith and occasionally had some doubts. But I think in the current age, we really kind of live in a society, an age that doubt is the standard. And we try to practice or entertain the possibility of faith. I think that's a great summary context statement. It's probably explains some of certainly my and others' experience of kind of push and pull, or we might even understand that on our own, maybe we might for our own selves and our own hearts, put that on a scale. Where am I in that? But it's also, I think, generational. That certainly we are always about, no matter how deep our faith is, it's always about asking questions. It's part of how we deepen our faith, etc. But way long time ago, when I was a child, and when I was in school, I was raised in a Catholic culture, and the city of Chicago was Catholic. Everything was Catholic or Christian, and had all the basics drilled into me. And then my teachers took it, said, okay, well that's good, but there's some questions. And there was a lot of deconstruction and demythologizing, and all of that was fine. But I think we are now in a different place. We're no longer all of those things that surround us and support us. And so now, instead of saying, I think sometimes we have to say, instead of saying it's okay to have a few doubts, in this society, it's almost, you have to say, it's okay to have some faith. It's okay to turn to God. It's okay to actually use religious language sometimes. And so that's another piece of context. The third thing I want to say is something that Father Vince Costello said. So many of you remember Father Vince. He was this was at a funeral of a colleague of ours, a friend and collaborator and co-conspirator, Father Dick Miller. We all worked at the seminary together and tried to change the seminary. We did, actually. But what he said was, Dick Miller believed God. We often say we believe in God, but believing God really echoed in my mind. All three of these things have echoed for me the last few months. Believing God. Believing God's promise. Believing God's mercy. So here we are, part A. Mercy. The year of mercy. So one or two folks in this room asked me recently, so what's the theme for this year? And I have this allergy to themes. Maybe being raised in the time I was, too many felt banners that said, joy, peace, whatever. But I have been beaten into submission or converted, or, well, the Pope gave us a theme, so I guess I gotta go with it. So what's the theme? The theme's mercy. Well, what's that? I was asked. And well, I think what's really cool about it, we'll find out. We've been told to meditate on mercy for a year, to just keep watching our own hearts, observing where we see it happening, and where we see the opportunities to practice it. That's been my experience so far. It's like, oh, that was a mercy moment. That was a mercy moment. Either when I've seen it in someone else, or someone was telling me today about a funeral, and the black sheep uncle was there, and somebody watched the family come on, sit up front of us. It's a moment of mercy. So many. There's a great one that I can't share because it's about here. But read my bulletin reflection this week, and it's probably going to be my homily too. It's another mercy moment that I've shared with somebody recently. So we'll find out. One of the ways that I often suggest that people meditate on the Scriptures is a real simple formula of head, heart, hands. What do you know? Where does it touch your heart? And what does it move you to do? Head, heart, hands. But I think mercy is the same way. What do we think it is? And what's going on in our hearts? Where's the conversion that really needs to take place? And what action does that move us into? We talk about the corporal and spiritual works of mercy, and we can tend to think that, oh, that's the hands part, that's the action part. But it's the whole thing. That's what this program's about. I'm going to punch this about 5 times for you, so don't worry. It's a conversion that has to happen in our heads and in our hearts before we really embrace, or while we're embracing that those corporal and spiritual works of mercy. So again, in our parish, we'll get some dinner first. Friends, get some dinner. We have this Strengths Reunion about mercy. There is the Lenten program, and then really we hope that after Easter we move into really adopting those works of mercy, put those things into action. So we're trying to follow this in the parish. So Pope Francis is clearly all about mercy. I think James Martin was asked, what's the theme for Pope Francis? He said he has 3. Mercy, mercy, and mercy. And it started the very first day of his papacy. The very first daily Mass, which he's become famous really for his daily Mass homilies. His meditations and off-the-cuff stuff is so rich in publishing. But his very first one was, he said, the message of Jesus is mercy. And he was reflecting on the story of the woman caught in adultery, fighting with the lawyers, etc. And I think everybody thought, oh, that's nice. And he kept saying it, kept saying it, kept saying it, kept saying it. I think people began to say, seriously? This is it? Isn't God love, truth, justice, wisdom? And he just has kept saying it. Cardinal Casper wrote a book, Mercy, the Essence of the Gospel and the Key to the Christian Life, which is it's not an easy read, but it's a good read. Where it takes theological, philosophical, scriptural, and if you read the Pope, it's echoed there. It's certainly formed or expressed a lot. He says a couple things. That mercy is the defining attribute of God. He also says that image of God, this attribute of God, is the one we need most for this age. Post 9/11, natural disasters, that the mercy of God is the thing we really, really need to reflect on. And he is, by doing that, he is basically proposing that we rethink the doctrine of God. That's what makes people nervous. That this attribute of God being the central attribute of God. So people were, again, in a discussion that's happened over the last few years, it was like, well, is it mercy or justice? Is it mercy or truth? And then a speaker that I think visited us last year said, well, it's mercy and truth. And I thought, no, that's not what the Pope is saying. He's saying it is truth. Mercy is truth. Mercy is doctrine. And if you read his latest book, which is basically an interview, The Name of God is Mercy, that's what he's saying. He's doubling down on this. He's not backing off. It is the first attribute of God, which, in some ways, is so unlike us. And that's the challenge in our own hearts and lives. So does he mean it? Yes, he does. And so, we have to remember, again, with the Pope, that, and Casper and all, that mercy is God's response to sin. And so mercy can sound like sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card, but it is this radical stance of God in the face of sin. And remember that when Pope Francis was interviewed earlier, they asked him, well, how would you describe yourself? And he paused for a minute and said, I'm a sinner. I'm a sinner. Now that's very Ignatian. Remember, he's a Jesuit. Ignatian spirituality is grace, repentance, life in Christ. Repeat. Grace first, repentance, life in Christ. It starts with grace. It starts with mercy. Always. You always go back there. He also, of course, when he tells his story, even before he became a Jesuit, and that was his experience of going to confession. He was going to a dance, went to confession at 17 years old, and it all changed. It all changed for him. This weekend's gospel is Peter and Jesus on a fishing trip. And it's a great retelling of this by Jack Shea. At that time I would read, which is terrific. It's just terrific. I brought it with me, but it's the story, where they've fished all night and Jesus says, let's try again. They've already washed the nets, they've already put the boats away. Try again. Okay. And of course they catch the abundance of fish. Both boats are filled to sinking. And Peter, in light of the presence of God, says, go away from me. Get away from me. I am a sinful man. Jesus says, be not afraid. Be not afraid. That's the mercy that Casper and the Pope are talking about. In light of that kind of realization, Jesus says, I'm not going anywhere. Be not afraid. So, we have Francis and Casper and us. One more comment from me. I think that it's also, Casper says that mercy is the ignored virtue, the ignored topic, and it's a terrible thing. And I think actually it's probably fine. Because in some ways it's a word that we use a lot and haven't thought about. It's on the liturgy all the time. We start out, Lord have mercy, whatever, yeah, whatever. But God is love, which is all over the scriptures. Love has so many meanings in our society. It can mean self-giving love. It can be selfish love. We warn the word love out. Mercy's open for interpretation. It's new, and it gives us, I think, a chance to think about the face of God as mercy in a whole new way. I don't think that Valentine's Day cards will be mercy cards, but it gives us a chance to do exactly what Casper's suggesting, a new theology of God. So what is mercy? It's not a decree, but a caress, the Pope would say. It's medicine in a field hospital. It's an experience. It's an experience of forgiveness, of accompaniment, of rest, of listening, of transition, of taking the next step. It is a ministry, as the Pope says in this latest calls it the apostolate of the ear. Apostolate of the ear. Listening. Just listening. I was thinking about this morning as I woke up, and it was this image. It's a gas that tries to invade a solid. Air around a rock. Light pressing into darkness. As we move into what we're thinking about the strengths, there's some really important things about mercy. It demands that we face our own vulnerability. It's been a theme for us and our staff this year. We need mercy until we know we need it. We're not going to receive it. That's Peter and Jesus in the boat. It is also fits our parish spiritual life stewardship, because stewardship says you have received, therefore you give. So being vulnerable enough to receive in order to give. vulnerability, stewardship. And it is a practical spirituality like stewardship. It is both action and attitude. It's internal and external. As I said before, it takes that change of mind and heart that moves into action. And it is personal and communal. And so, as we step into the strengths part of this talk, listen for the vulnerable, stewardship, so we can receive and give, conversion, and conversion, and then personal and communal. That was part B. What I was assigned to do. Strengths and mercy. Okay, just reviewing. We remember that strengths, or the themes of the strength themes, we remember is just sort of just how you are. It's who you are. It's how you do things. It's in you. It's part of your DNA. It's your attributes. And none of them are named mercy. There's no category of strength or name labeled mercy. And so, we need to reflect on it. Strength for the Journey, the program that all of you have been through, again, puts it in the context that these are God-given and to be developed for the personal growth and betterment. And, as in all things church, it's communal. So strengths for the journey, the strengths is both personal and communal. And those are the two things I'd like to explore with you. There will be participation through this part. So first of all, I'd like you to hearken back to your first experience of Strengths for the Journey. When you got that, when you took that survey, and you waited for the results, and you got the news. These are your top 5. And you watch HGTV. It's this couple that does houses in Texas. Chip and Joanna, fixer-upper. They always reveal, here's your fixer-upper! And everybody goes, woo! Not everybody does that when they see their top 5. There's kind of 2 reactions, or maybe kind of 3. One reaction is, that seems right, that pretty much nails me, and so what? Now what? Or now what? Another reaction on the other side of that is, that's not me. It's not me, and I wanted something else. I really wanted, I wanted this and didn't get it. This is clearly a wrong test. Clearly have command, and it didn't give it to me. And the third reaction perhaps is kind of the, well, maybe, probably, could be me, but I don't see them as strengths. And so, maybe a reaction, and I'm thinking about this in kind of the 2 sides, because we know that each one of these themes has a kind of, it is the strength side, but and they're there in front of you again, the summaries. We didn't give you the other side, there's those shadow sides. So one reaction to, seems to be like me, so what, now what, is, okay, there's a chance for me to get better. There's going to be a chance for me to develop these, to deepen these, to really, that's the whole point, is that we've been given these things, but they don't just, if they just sit there, scripturally we know, when these gifts just sit there, they just sit there. We're supposed to work on them, do some training, get some skills, make them into true strengths. The other side of that is it can make us, it can also help us to be appreciative of others. When there are all these many things, and because we can point out to you that nobody has very few, it's zillions the odds of you getting the same ones in the same order, etc. The uniqueness of each person. So there's a doorway of mercy right there. On the other ones, I think for me at least, I was more the last one where it was like, Yeah, I guess those are it. I have not seen those as strengths. Didn't like the results. I was sitting at the table here, and they're like, "Oh, those look like good ones for priests." They are actually. Didn't until reading and a little bit. So for me, it really was the mercy in this experience for me personally was very healing and very encouraging. And so there's all different ways that mercy happens in the experience itself. And again, as I say, healing, empowerment, those are the kinds of things I experienced in going through this. So, I'd like to just try to get us all thinking a little bit about mercy and the strengths. One of the things that struck me is since we tend to make God in our own image, that we probably think about God through our strengths themes. Think about it a little bit. If we're talking in our strengths, those are sort of our essence, then we probably might lay a little bit on the essence of God in that, how you think about God. And I think that's a fine, one of the things we can do with theological reflection is if you have that image, you can check that out against the tradition. So I was just thinking about a couple of consistency. Certainly we hear in scriptures all the time, and very much when we talk about mercy, about the faithfulness of God. God is faithful to us. God doesn't leave. God is consistent. As much as we might not believe that, or not take comfort in that, or want to run away from that, or whatever, God is consistent. God is faithful. That's in our tradition. Will not abandon us, no matter what. I was thinking about connectedness, my top one. God is one. This is about communion. That's what church is about. That's what we're to be drawn into. That's very much part of our tradition. Restorative. What does restorative do? Sees what's wrong and pulls it together, tries to fix it. That's what Jesus came to do. It's called redemption. These are themes in our tradition that I think we can be in touch with. So maybe just take a moment, look at your 5, and think about your image of God. Let's see if I'm right.
You're so stuck.
You don't have to do all 5, but just think about 1 or 2, just like I said. I see God through those lenses. We will be checking for heresy. Yeah, it's got a whoop.
Of course he is.
He lost every relationship with everybody.
He is.
Any reaction to that? Just quickly,
Absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Spot on.
it's the way we tend to see God through our own lenses. Okay? Now remember, there's no strength called mercy. So this is a challenge for all of us. It's not a given. We have to look through our lens and find the God of mercy. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would we be practicing mercy or would we be just practicing compassion? Is mercy only God? Because it's forgiving sins and we can't. Are we limited to compassion?
I can read what if you read Casper, he talks about that, and certainly it's not the same in his mind. Compassion can lead. I think what they're saying is mercy it contains it all. So compassion for someone else could. Is an attitude, perhaps, that leads to this larger reality of mercy. Okay, I'd like to then, just sort of having that piece of knowing where we're coming from, and that's fine, but recognizing that we still have to stretch, because God, in fact, isn't us. That's a really important thing. We are not God. We are made in the image of God. God is not made in our image. That's the trick there. Okay. So the second piece is, so that we're talking about image, but now kind of getting into practice of mercy. Two questions. Where have you observed, so I gave an example of that funeral, for example, where have you observed mercy? And whatever way you might identify that. Mercy, an act of mercy, practice of mercy, in yourself or another person. Name that for yourself. And the second piece then is, where do you think that came from? And what perhaps had to be overcome to do that? Example. Picking on the woos again, because I love to do that.
We can take it.
Winning others over is a woo. A woo wants everybody to like each other, but especially wants everybody to like them. And God wants us to like them, like God. But the shadow side of that is for what purpose? And for whose purpose? You know? Hitler was probably a woo.
Where did that come from?
See? Now I'll pick on myself. A deliberator. Not the most beloved, I think, strength. Well needed in an organization, but in our fast-moving society, people want it now. The strength there is that once a deliberator has thought things through, that's where we're going. There's no turning back. That's a strength to some degree. But the other thing that has to be overcome is overthinking or procrastinating. And so finding that magic moment and, in fact, putting it into action. This is what I'd like you to just chat about a little bit at your tables. Think of an act of mercy that you've seen, observed, or even in yourself. And thinking through strengths, maybe if you've seen it in someone else, where might that have come from? 2 minutes for the introverts to think. Anybody talk among yourselves. What have you observed? Where did it come from? What might have had to be overcome? Empathy, forgiveness, those kinds of things. Can you be too merciful? Does everyone deserve forgiveness? Thank God you're not God. But yeah, those are exactly the things. Those are exactly the touch points. What do we need to overcome, or how does this concept of mercy, which we are not, God is, how does this continue to press? And it presses on all those. Those are great questions. I think a couple of thoughts on that is all of those are either attitudes leading to this, or part of, or foundational to mercy, or actions that are part of it also. So, forgiveness is really, is at that table, forgiveness is as much about it really is a gift to ourselves. If we're holding stuff and not forgiving it, who loses? You. The Zen saying, consider the advantages and disadvantages of forgiveness and then choose. I guess what's the problem with forgiving? Maybe I get, we hold on to stuff that hurts us because we get something out of it. It gives us energy or something. But, our identity, I'm the injured one, all kinds of things that get in the way of moving towards what God is for us. Empathy. Empathy is the ability to feel with others, to be compassionate, those kinds of things. Can you be too empathetic? I suppose, sure. If it completely paralyzes you, keeps you from being able to move. I was thinking about harmony. That would be another kind of piece of trying to bring peace to the world, a little mercy, and yeah, harmony really wants people to get along, but just get along. Belief, another strength. Having a strong sense of what makes it work, what motivates me, that really is a wonderful thing. But we have to overcome the temptation to make it's got to be my way, my belief, my set, my way of putting it together. Again, I'm restorative to see what's wrong, what needs repair, to really respond to that. Of course, the other side of restorative is you see what's wrong all the time. And that can really, again, what keeps us from moving, maybe that's what I'm beginning to hear in my own comment here, is we can get paralyzed on the shadow side of our strengths that doesn't allow us to move off that place. So that's some of this. Any other quick things from that discussion? I know, again, those were a lot of the things I heard, the harmony, the forgiveness, how those all pieces fit together. Does this mean that, I'm just sort of a doormat, I show mercy to everyone, I can do whatever they want. No, it is not what this is about. It doesn't eliminate justice, it doesn't eliminate the need for claiming who in fact you are. Respecting others as a child of God, guess what? You need to be respected as a child of God. And to call that out, that is a merciful act, actually, to demand that. One of the interpretations of the turn the other cheek was that it was a non-violent way of saying, I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to be backhanded by you. I'm going to stay and not look for another guy. Stand up for who I am. But that is those things. I just want to do a quick piece. So that I was kind of working on the personal thing, but of course it moves into the action in communal. And the other little thing I was thinking about is the other sheet you have there are the different domains. So these are it's the chart. That one. The chart with the blanks on it, the colored chart. So just quickly, circle your strengths on that chart. Look at that.
It's not pathetic, it's you. I would affirm that list.
Sisters separated.
This is surprising.
I know.
Executed, right, where I
Okay, so that's revealing. So this comes out of a different strengths book on management, and it's there to kind of help think about how communally you can operate. That's a business or a family or a relationship, so executing, the first column there is those are the folks that make it happen, who can catch an idea and run with it, make it happen. The influencing folks are the people who make it known. They're the communicators, the salespeople, with internally or externally. We got a great idea. Let's, as a family, we're all going to the zoo. I want to go to the zoo. Relationship building. These are the folks that create energy, bring groups together. The group is greater than the sum of the total, that kind of thing. My tongue is twisted, but you know what I mean. Strategic thinking, what could be, how it comes about, seeing that the inner workings of how these things work. So I was thinking about a experience back at the Shield Center where we got a bunch of people to do some painting. We painted the basement like this one. The executing person would say, boy, we got a lot done. We got a lot done, and it just looks better, doesn't it? That would be the executing person. The influencing person would say, a lot of people were involved. Got a lot, we really sold this thing. We really, this was a real success because a lot of people showed up. And a relationship building person would say, isn't this great? People got to know each other. We really formed community here. And a strategic thinker would say, this went well. What's the next project? We're not doing enough. Exactly. And that is a true experience. I remember standing there with one of the guy who organized, said, we got a lot done. I said, they got to know each other. And there are 4 completely different ways of looking at a very successful event. A good team, of course, tries to. Not everyone has all the skills, but a good team tries to, have a balance of those things, or at least knowing that we don't have that. There might be one person in the group that you have to really expect. This isn't true in our staff. We're pretty heavy in a particular area, and there's 1 or 2 people in the staff that really do have a different thing, and a different way of seeing things, and that person can be seen as an outlier, Or the person you go to, and it's like, I need help thinking about this in another way. And it's like, wow, I would have never gone there naturally. So I guess just to think about what it means to be merciful communally, in some ways the same thing. You can look at your organization, whatever that might be, your family, your circle of friends, your job situation, whatever, and see again where those strengths are really happening and what can promote mercy in each of those domains. One of the ways that I thought we might ask that question is when you look at those individual domains, what do you admire in those? You know, so oftentimes it's like, man, I wish I could do that. You know, what annoys you? Those people are always saying, what's next? Or those people are always saying, it's all about the relationships. So just think about that a little bit, maybe talk about that a little bit at your table.
Thank you, John. You're always welcome.
And you are.
So that obviously sparked a few conversations. And again, one of the great gifts of, in my opinion, of any of these kinds of things, whether it be the Myers-Briggs or the Strengths Finding or whatever, is it is really this self-awareness. And how that forms, not only how we form, particularly how it forms how we see other people. And that in particular, I think, is what's pretty key to the understanding the strengths and mercy. What is mercy? You know, I don't know that we walk out of here tonight with a definition, but I don't know that that is the goal. In the last, one of the books that some of you have read and is in the Lenten brochure is Mercy in the City. I mentioned in a couple of homilies, Carrie Weber tried to take all of the corporal works of mercy and do them through a Lent and reflected on those. And spoiler alert, but this is towards the end, if you are going to read it. Here's a kind of conclusion. This experience with the works of mercy has helped me to see how much my faith must be a choice, how easy it is to become complacent, the need to remind myself to respond to the call of my faith each day. There are so many ways to say yes. Mercy is not something we bestow upon one another from on high in a sort of grand gesture, but rather something much quieter and more humble. It is an invitation, an openness, a kind of accompanying. To have mercy is to give mercy. To give mercy is to empty oneself out, to make room for the love for another. I hope that on your table you have a number of things. One is the agenda for tonight with 3 questions you probably could take home with you as a result of tonight. What's your definition of mercy? Where does that, and how does that apply? So I invite you to keep thinking about this and to, we've got till November 20th or something, then we don't have to be merciful anymore. Your mercy. No, I really, I think it's really a wonderful, for me at least, so far it's been really a wonderful thing to just keep that as the lens. Where do I see it? In others, where do I try to find it in myself? Where are those opportunities? Hopefully tonight, a little more awareness of yourself as you continue to meditate on mercy. I think that's about it. Again, there's the Lenten program, which we'll work very, very hard on to look at specifics of the mercy. And so walk with Pope Francis through that, because Francis is not, that's the other thing about what's so wonderful about him. He's this smiling, warm guy, and just keeps talking about mercy. And then he nails you. And he brings it to very real things, the environment, how we relate in many very practical ways. And so that will be the reflection through this program, and hopefully for all of us over Lent. How do we put this into practice? And how do we really hear the gospel this weekend and hear that Jesus tells us, be not afraid. So let's pray. Gracious God, we are grateful. Grateful for you, your gift of mercy, your face of mercy. Help us to see that in ourselves, especially in our need, that we might truly receive and therefore be mercy for others. Thank you for all these opportunities to explore and to share, for the generosity of those who have come tonight and those who have helped 500 people in this parish to go through Strengths of the Journey. You have given us these gifts in our lives. We do not have them all, but we have them all together. As the body of Christ, we give thanks through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Father.
The evaluation. Fill out the evaluation. Maybe I'll get invited back.